Thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity. So today, this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about Koan, a tradition and a practice in the Zen school. I think unique to the Zen school. So I'm not sure how much, if anything, what people know or are interested about Koan. When I sent the in discussion with Travis for these few classes I'm joining for, I wrote this one down as Koan, essential questioning. So really that's what Koan is for me, is essential questioning. The questions that are most compelling or most important, that usually come up in practice. When we practice for a period of time, often there are certain questions, aspects of our life which we keep maybe circling back to or looking at, or it appears sometimes in different ways. So that can also be Koan, or essential question. You know, long before the Zen tradition came into being in any kind of form, there was always question about its life, or at least I assume so. You know, who am I? What is this life? You know, what's God's plan? Whatever that question is, often in this life, in our life, it can seem very everyday or quite normal or usual. But then if we look at it with fresh eyes, from a place of presence, you can really see into the miracle of this living experience. Now, it really is extraordinary, extraordinary for us to appear as this. You know, that there is Koan. What is this? Looking at this experience, what is my place in it? What is most in accord with reality? What is true? Koan itself, the word in Chinese, I think it's Kongan in Chinese, and it has the implication of public document, precedent. So apparently in those earlier times in China, there would be an edict or a law from the emperor that would then filter down to the local governors, places, go all the way out into the countryside. It would be a law, and it would be written down on a piece of paper, then on a board, and posted in the town. And it would be a public document. That was the law, and that was the precedent. So Koan means public document in that sense. Even now, we see parallels with the legal system. If something happens as a question of legality, they look to form to precedent for established law. In the Zen school, the precedent and the standard was collected in various collections of interactions between teachers, students, other teachers, and then taken forward and studied. These collections, the sayings of the old Zen masters, typically arose in China, Tang Dynasty China. But then many of them also from earlier times in India too. And Zen looks back to a golden age. Like many traditions, it looks back at a fondly remembered ideal past in some ways. You know, I think many spiritual disciplines have that way of looking at a former golden age. But it's very important for us to realize and actualize this time now, this golden age, to bring it alive now, not to look back on some ideal past, but to rather to, in understanding that these past words and phrases or past precedent, we see how that lives and functions now. You know, these essential questions, how they come alive and how they function in our everyday experience, the everyday experience of getting up in the morning, going to work, going to the grocery store, many things, whatever that is throughout the day, how Koan works and functions in our life. And historically, when these sayings and words of the ancient teachers were gathered together a little later and put into books and into collections, and then as we had Zen monasteries or centers, which still, you know, like the one I'm at now, still continue to this day, then those collections of koans are worked on by a student with a teacher who has been through the system, his or herself, and examined, hopefully meticulously, and worked through from beginning to, you know, so-called end. And it's a way, really, in our tradition or our lineage, it's a way, you know, it's a check and balance too, of maintaining the integrity and standard of the tradition. But you have to measure up to a certain level of insight. So it's, you know, a little of historical background. To give you, to bring up an example of Koan, there was a Zen teacher called Joshi, who was acknowledged as one of the great Zen teachers. And he was asked a stock question by a disciple. A stock question was, what is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? So Bodhidharma was the founder, somewhat legendary, or some aspects are probably legendary. Some are probably based in a real person who brought the tradition of Zen Buddhism to China and got the whole ball rolling in China. Buddhism meeting Taoism, Confucianism, and becoming something uniquely Chan or Zen. So this student asked Master Joshi, what was the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? So why did Bodhidharma come from the West? Well, we could say, you know, why did the Dalai Lama come from the East? Or why did Thich Nhat Hanh, probably pronouncing that badly, why did he come here from Vietnam? Maybe a more contemporary example, but it was used as a testing, as a question, to really to ask about something fundamental. What is the meaning of Buddhism? What is the meaning of Zen? What is the meaning of this reality? That's a living question now for each of us. What is practice? What is our practice? What is this experience? Fundamentally, what is it? What is it to be human? What is it to be alive? Now, so any of these questions that can be really brought to a point have power to strip away that which is extraneous, a lot of, intellectual weighing of things, and boil things down to a single pointed question. It's another function of Koan, to bring things to a point. To meditate for long periods is really to bring things to a point. Zen, they say, is the effort school. Not that there's a monopoly on effort, but it takes a lot of effort to continue to sit and to follow the way, to follow the practice over and over and over again. And it has the effect of creating heat in oneself, to sit over and over, to bring things up to a point. So perhaps this monk student who asked Joshu was practicing in such a way. What was the meaning? Bodhidharma's coming from the West. The meaning of Buddhism. And Master Joshu replied, the juniper tree in the courtyard. It's commonly written as the oak tree in the courtyard, but I'm looking at a new translation lately which says it's a little more accurate. Apparently the juniper tree doesn't have any use. Didn't have use for timber, for wood. So you could kind of misconstrue and maybe put some meaning on oak tree. So maybe that's an interesting point there. What is the meaning of Buddhism? The juniper tree in the courtyard. What is the meaning of Buddhism? The portrait of the Buddha on the wall. What is the meaning of Buddhism? The lamp and the voice recorder. Any of these pointers are Koan. What is most important? What does that mean to say that? I would imagine that at Joshu's monastery there was a juniper tree in the courtyard. Probably, maybe over his shoulder. Maybe he looked in that direction when he said that. Or if the monk or student had been there for a while, he knew what he was talking about. Go there for your answer. What is it to see a tree, to experience that? In one sense, maybe on a surface level, it's just a tree, or it's another tree, or maybe it's an apple tree and we like apples or don't like apples. Or remember when we climbed in a tree when we were a child. Or to look at something, to see, opens up that sum of experience that we are. We make our associations and memories, projections and ideas and opinions. What really is a tree in the courtyard? When you really look at anything at all, inside or outside, where is the meaning? What can you really say? When we look at spiritual practice, or when we understand how we understand that, then we need to be cautious not to appropriate it for our own ideas. These vehicles, great vehicles that we have, Buddhism, other spiritual traditions, all serve to point back to this one question. Who am I? Or what is this? And my teacher, over and over, would bring that up in Dharma talks, or to me personally in meetings, and say that, what is this? For so long I'd look at that as, what is this? Asking that question, expecting my numbers to come up, expecting some answer to come forward that takes care of all questions. But what is this? in my own experience, I see that question differently now. What is this? As rather the living inquiry into what is occurring now. You know, without the filter, without the lens, or not being reliant on the filter or the lens of my own conditioned pattern, what I think, feel, or how I judge it, although that goes on while my heart beats, I'm going to have that occur. But it's a shame if it obscures that basic wonderment of being alive with an open inquiry into our present living. You know, on the way here I was struck. I dropped my son off at his aunt's, and it worked out that they were in Glendale, so I went to Glendale first, and I drove from the centre. And I've driven there before, but you know, it's a little different. And then drop him off there, and then take the 5 and then the 710 down. And you know, I've driven both those freeways, but not quite like that. I never drove to Glendale and then down to Long Beach. So it's the same, but different. You know, I've driven around LA, but it's a little different this time. A little different. And I stopped at a place, and I lived in Long Beach for a year, just in Bixby Knolls. And right by where I used to live. So I know that area, so I pulled off in that way, and I thought I'd take the surface street here then. And there's like a new Trader Joe's there. I'm like, oh, we've put, you know, that wasn't there when I lived there. It's a bit more gentrified towards Del Amo in that spot now. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I was a little hungry. I'll go in Trader Joe's. I go in Trader Joe's, and it's the same as every other Trader Joe's, in a sense. You know, you kind of orient yourself. There's a cold section. Wine's over there. Where's the bathroom? Oh, it's down the back. You know, it's the same, but it's different. It's new. You know, to walk there to pick up a couple of things to eat. You know, it's not quite the same each time. It's like, what is this? And I was asking myself that question, not in a what is it? You know, what is this? What is this? What is this? In a kind of blank, repetitive way, but rather to just look at where one is, look at where the seat of this experience is, and to see what is occurring. You know, that is where we find the appropriate response. You know, and you see the marvelousness of its life. You know, which we so easily obscure. If you're anything like me, I'm going around thinking about politics or what the hell with the country and blah blah blah, you know, and then I crash my car because I'm, you know, winding myself up, usually about people. For myself, you know, I don't really have a problem with trees or clocks. But people, that tends to be a bit more difficult, so I kind of run some stories, you know. And then miss out on what is going on now. What is here? You know, as I'm having this experience, a little kid, must have been about 4, came in front of me pushing one of those mini carts that they give kids with some like milk and stuff in there, and just kind of looked at me like, what's up, you know, just carried on like it's the most regular thing in the world. It's amazing. Is this Koan? You know, are we looking at, do we look back to the past and idealize a spiritual life, a spiritual tradition, or a way of seeing things that isn't now, it doesn't exist now? If so, then what use is it? You know, I was very intrigued. I did Koan study. I've done Koan study with my teacher. I was very intrigued and into wanting to do it. You know, because being motivated around Zen practice, I really wanted to match up to the old guys. You know, to really understand what they were talking about. So I brought a lot of heat and a lot of energy to that. To really to look into this. You know. But if it's to just, you know, pass some koans and feel, you know, spiritually superior to people, what use is that? It's no use at all. It's an impediment. where Koan has been most helpful in my experience is to clear away, to cut away the myriad ways in which I try to grasp the ungraspable, the way in which I try to understand, the way that I try to box life off, get a handle on what is going on. What I've found for myself is, if I hold on to anything at all, people, things, whatever appears on, the level of form, which we see and move in, whatever I try and hold there, I find that it can't be held, it can't be co-opted, it can't be controlled, thank goodness. Life continues as it is. Something doesn't change. Something is always the same. Something goes right through the middle. While these forms, while these appearances, people, things rise and fall and change. I look at myself in the mirror sometimes, go to the bathroom, look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, how'd that happen? I'm in my mid-40s. How'd that happen? But in one another sense, nothing's changed. Nothing has ever changed. When we look in our own heart, perhaps we find our own question, our own koan there. Whatever that might be. Who is this one? Am I satisfied? Is this satisfactory? Am I living my purpose? When we really settle down, any question that needs to be examined comes forward. The important questions can't be forgotten, can't be lost. They come forward and inquire. There are other, with koan, other practical purposes too. They keep you sitting, give you something to work on. Often, like in talks or with my own expression now, there seems I'm very suspicious of method, I'm suspicious of effort, of aiming the mind in one direction over another, of valuing anything over another. Very careful, I try to be very careful, very suspicious about that. But I couldn't approach my spiritual practice, I couldn't begin there. I had to take on a few difficulties, koans, a few bones to chew on for a while, till I was tired of gnawing on things. Something to give the mind, it can have that practical purpose too, to give the mind somewhere, something to focus on, something to wear itself out on, if you need to wear something out. I was sitting here and settling down when we begin. My mind's like a jungle, or well, sometimes it's like a swamp. It's not on one level, it's not still. It's not still. It rises, it falls, thinks about all kinds of things, takes positions. A real shift in my practice of meditation is to cease the measuring good meditation against bad meditation. I should be doing this, I shouldn't be doing that. But rather to directly experience the fact of this expression now, without the value system, without the prejudice, whatever that is. To not have to describe it in any particular way, to not have to pick and choose. It's okay then to sit with a busy mind, as long as we don't take it as so, as long as we don't find fault with a busy mind or a quiet mind. And another koan, same teacher, Joshu, said and he was picking up a phrase from an even older time. The great way is not difficult. It merely dislikes picking and choosing. The great way. This way. Our way. This way. It's not difficult. You know, everyone's involved. Everyone all together, no one's left out. Nothing is left out. It's not difficult. Come one, come all, you know. But it dislikes picking and choosing, or another translation, but it dislikes preference. Life is how life is. No matter how much we beat our heads against that. I'm good at beating my head against the way things are. You know? Have my idea about how the world should be, according to me. God help you. You know, if it were that.